Dragon Quest, just like with Final Fantasy, are a mainstay of my gaming youth, as well as the games that I love to consume the most. In fact, Dragon Quest XI was my game of the year when it came out here in the West, and I stand by that. I think it is such an incredible game that I'm very excited about the new details that we're going to be talking about in today's video as it relates to the future of Dragon Quest, namely Dragon Quest XII. So hello everyone and welcome to the channel. My name is Brian if you're new around here. I'm a RPG fanatic. This is the genre that I gravitate towards above all else. And as I've gotten older, the games have continued to remain the same. I still play Final Fantasy, I still play Dragon Quest, and I've been excited about the future with the Dragon Quest III 2D HD remake as we've been waiting for news. But this last Nintendo update, we actually did get Dragon Quest Monsters 3 news, which is going to be coming out later this year. So honestly, as a Dragon Quest fan, there is stuff to look forward to, but we might not be seeing Dragon Quest XII as soon as we'd hope, because it seems like it's going to be taking a Final Fantasy XVI approach, an adult targeted audience approach. And so the question to you at the start of this video, how does that make you feel? Now let's dive into it because there's a lot to talk about. Where's this coming from? Well, it comes from an interview series over at NoPixel. Says, well, let me start by saying this year marks the 37th anniversary of the Dragon Quest series. And to coincide with the 35th anniversary, an HD 2D remake of Dragon Quest III has been announced, and there are rumors that the latest title, Dragon Quest XII, The Flames of Fate, is about to be released. Anyway, Hori says, I guess it will take a little while. The time that we are making the game directed towards an adult audience, and it's highlighted for everybody to see. So we have a lot of trouble, laughs. There are also a lot of the, issues with the coronavirus pandemic. Are the game programmers and designers basically working remotely? Yes, some have preferred to remain at the remote. And do you encounter any communication problems with this method? Well, they use Zoom. Okay, so the key aspect taking away is the adult audience. Does this mean they're going to go for that rated M for mature? Well, honestly, I've got a lot of thoughts about that, because the first thing that I think about, and honestly, this is from Shift Shaper in the post that I made on the YouTube channel, says, with that art style, how? Well, that's a great question. That's something that I also want to know myself. With that art style, how? Does this mean that we would see an updated art style for the game itself? The classic art style is gorgeous. Like, I can't deny it for how Dragon Quest XI looks, but I can remember also being a kid in 3rd and 4th grade, walking around the playground, envisioning what like a dark and gritty, Dragon Quest could look like or would look like. And if they did go that direction, would it really even be the same? Wouldn't it be interesting or more interesting to go ahead and just peel it off into its own IP at that point? But Dragon Quest carries a lot of weight, and trying to attract a bigger, wider audience, I'm not going to fault him for, because every time it feels like Dragon Quest, sells very well in Japan, but in the global audience, it doesn't necessarily perform as well for a wide range of reasons. And I end up buying multiple copies because I want them to keep bringing Dragon Quest, in the West. And so I'm doing my part, as best as I can. So this also kind of coincides with what we've heard, kind of the directive come from Square Enix, trying to, appeal to the biggest audience possible and not just be like a Japanese game developer studio. In fact, Yoshi P has pushed back on that multiple times, but this isn't just about this. Let's jump into some of y'all's tweets and comments about this specific subject. Justina says, LOL, watch it be just as divisive as 16, except for this one, I don't have a horse in the race. Following it up saying, I personally think 16 reopened some wounds dating back to the 360 PS3 era. Perhaps it would help if they did a game like 9, calling it an end to the old era, 16-bit. Final Fantasy is also celebrating it for its sci-fi era, 7, 8, 10, and 13. And honestly, I wouldn't have any problem with that. If they decided to go with another Final Fantasy, kind of rooting back into its, its history and its establishment, that'd be fine. Honestly, I think the solution, in a way, is what Dragon Quest has done. They released Dragon Quest XI, but they also released it with a 2D version of the same game, giving players a lot of choice in how they want to experience Dragon Quest. And I wouldn't mind if they did that same thing for 12 and also for Final Fantasy. I think essentially that would be really cool. How cool would it be to play a pixel remaster of Final Fantasy 16 alongside the action, arcade, that is Final Fantasy 16, which I'm loving. I haven't had any time to play because I'm a family guy and my my family comes first. And I have so far made it, I think, about 10, 12 hours into it. And I can't wait to continue on that journey. And that's going to come hopefully soon enough. But needless to say, I'm very excited. Now, as far as it goes in terms of divisiveness, yes, this is the age of the internet. Any complaint that anybody has immediately becomes a point that everybody has to talk about. How dare they, think the voice acting of Sid is not perfection? It's in a way that somebody says something like completely stupid, but in order to get attention, we all call attention to it. So I think we're all kind of at fault in this regard, in this horse race. But that's just my take as as a concerned citizen. All right, Top Bob says, I love how dark 16 gets, and I'd like to see a Dragon Quest spin to it. I kind of hope that it remains turn-based. Question to you guys, should 12 be turn-based? They almost went with an action, combat system with 9, but then the reaction to it was no. And so they pulled that back and went 9 with a turn-based battle system. I think it's beyond time, and I think it's perfectly acceptable to let Dragon Quest evolve. And honestly, an action combat system could be pretty freaking cool. That all being said, then all of a sudden, what are we really going to, benefit from? Because not everybody likes action. Again, I think that all of a sudden you have these games that have this rich history. You feel like if you abandon that history, you're abandoning players who enjoy that nostalgia trip, enjoy that sense of comfort. I don't think we should abandon them. I think essentially, though, that means you have to work twice as hard, if not more, to be able to do this. If it's turn-based, I think it's going to be fine, but I don't think it's going to have the appeal based off of Square Enix's mandates. And I think that's when it comes down to the sales, we just learned today, Final Fantasy 16 sold over 3 million units. Congrats. And we know that other, Final Fantasy 15 sold more. And the reason being, Final Fantasy 15 had a bigger reach, more platforms that are released on. I think Final Fantasy 16 can easily go above and beyond and will hit that 10 million mark based off its current trajectory, but that remains to be seen and only time will tell. Now, Stoic PJ says, judging by all the flack 16 got, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Not My Dragon Quest commentary. Just like before, it's guaranteed. It's that, and it's weird because if you feel like 16 wasn't your jam or whatever game has let you down, I want to say that sucks. I'm sorry that is your interaction with it, but I'm kind of just, I guess, along for the ride. When I get the ability to play video games, I don't know. I personally don't have endless time to play. So when I do, I guess I find the joy in it. And a lot of people get annoyed by that. They tell me about it all the time. Oh, I'm just too excited, I'm too happy about the way things that are. And it's yeah, maybe I am, and maybe I'm not your content creator if that's something that you don't resonate with, but it is going to be what it is. Then we go into Tundra Dome. Sounding Off says, now I won't be playing Dragon Quest anymore. First Final Fantasy, now Square Enix apparently thinks I want to watch digital sex that has no bearing on the plot. I do feel like this is, especially the adult themes, cuts off, an audience. I don't think it necessarily invites in an audience. I don't think anybody's well, I'd play Dragon Quest if there was sex in it. But it does essentially run the risk of turning people off of the game. I know for me, if I'm playing Dragon Quest with the kids, same thing with Final Fantasy, there's going to be a point where it's I'm sorry, you can't play this next game until you're this age. It's same thing with movies and things like that. Okay, there's movies that I'm looking forward to watching with my kids, but there's also things in them that they're just not ready for. It's not appropriate for their age. And so it becomes the same thing with gaming. It's always been that way with gaming, but the games that came in at the mature rating, like The Witcher and things like that, already had that. There wasn't essentially a history of hey, this is great. But then you could also say that Harry Potter, people grew up with Harry Potter. And eventually by the last movie, I wouldn't show the kids the last movie at this point, but I would let them see the first couple. And I think we've seen one or two at this point. Anyway, Silvernote says, I don't know, there's potential. And Morgan Renfield says, considering that the majority of console gamers are adults, it's the only real answer. And with these, yes, I think this is massive potential. I think this is really exciting to see. I do think and wonder, what's the art style going to be, because like within and of itself, you can have anime, that tells that story, and maybe they lean heavier into that. But if it's too cartoonish, it might just, I don't know, there's like that uncanny valley risk of telling an adult story while at the same time feeling like, what are we doing here? Like the slimes are so cute, and things like that. Like that's what I'm bringing to you in this video. So anyway, that's the news. That's not just my opinion, but that's the conversation we're having here on the internet. Feel free to sound off in the comments below. We can continue to have these kind of videos. Be sure to thank Jack in the comments if you made it all the way to this part of the video. Jack's been helping me out with editing, and he does a fantastic job. So hopefully you've been enjoying the videos. If you haven't subscribed and you want content like this is what we do here. And if you have subscribed, you are a freaking legend. And thanks so much for being here and coming back for these videos. Now, I got to get to work. Got to go help the wife with the kids. I got to go find some time to try to make some more videos for you guys here today. But anyway, love you faces. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But until then, take care.